Hi, welcome to Simply Scrapping. Narelle here. Today I wanted to have a look at what else you can do with your scraps. So I recently did a video where I made base pages with barely putting a dent into my scraps really, but I chose like the larger pieces of the scraps that I had to make the base project process much quicker. So what if you have smaller scraps? So for example, here this was an envelope that I deconstructed and it was too pretty, the paper was too pretty to throw away, and it's double-sided. So I thought, well, surely there is things I can do with this to get the most out of my scrap. I couldn't really use this in a base page because there's lines where the paper is like glued together to create the envelope, and I didn't really want the lines being shown in the pieces of paper on the base pages, because then I have to try and cover them up and it may not suit the layout in the end. So I thought there's lots of other things you can do with these scraps. And from this one envelope, and I haven't used all of it, there's still some up here that I could use, but I used 90% of it, 99% of it, didn't I? So I just went through all my dies and my punches and made the most of that scrap envelope. I created a little pocket page. So I use these for journaling quite a lot. I tuck them, or stick them, sorry, on the back of my layout, put a scrap bit of paper in there. I've got a bit here, I don't know if it's the right size. So say this is my journaling piece, and I tuck it in there, put a tab on the back, and then have the tab showing above the top of the page, and then people can lift that out and read the journaling and then tuck it back in. So I like making these little pockets as much as I can. I have a lot of layouts where I haven't journaled on. Journaling is not my thing. I like to be seen a lot on my pages. Number one, I think it detracts from the beauty of the page because you put a lot of time and effort into making the page look beautiful, and then sometimes the journaling just detracts from that. It's not a design element I like to put on the front of my pages, so I put a lot of journaling on the back, and I love these little pockets for doing that. So I got that little pocket as well out of the scrap paper. I got a tab, a few little pieces of squares. These were just in the die that I used. So this is the die that I used to make my pocket pages. It's actually currant. It's a mini pocket envelope die, and in here you'll see there's these couple of little shapes designed, you know, to embellish your little pocket, but my pocket's not going to be seen. It's on the back of a layout. It's purely to hold the journaling piece. But these little shapes are in there, and I went, well, they're good. You can use them to tuck in the side of a photo, or a grounding piece for an embellishment cluster, or a title. You could put like a thin word strip across that, and it's two-sided, so if you don't want the blue flowers, you've always got the grey polka dot pattern. And they were just in this packet, so I went, well, why not use them? Then also in this packet is this cute little leaf die, so I thought, oh, okay, I can make blue leaves. They would be pretty in clusters. And when I do something like that, when it's like a leaf die, for example, or the butterflies, I make multiples, because it's no good just making one or two, because if you're doing a layout and you have 3 or 4 clusters on your page and you use these leaves on a cluster, well then if that's the only place they are on the layout, that's really odd. So you want to repeat what you're doing, not necessarily the same, but you want to bring the same colours into each of the sections and each of the clusters, and that's a good way of doing it. So I made enough leaves out of this scrap to make sure that if I wanted to use them on a layout, I had enough to include in 3 or 4 clusters. So I also then went to the butterflies. So that's one die I used. I'll just move this out of the way. And then the same with the butterflies. I'll just find the die that I used for that. it's in here somewhere, and I didn't put them in order. Here we go. So this also is a new one, the Sketched Butterfly dies. And I just picked out the delicate die cut ones, not the full ones. These full ones are meant to die cut a stamped image. I could have used them to cut out a butterfly from this patterned paper, but I thought, well, that's probably a bit too much of a solid butterfly. It's hard to explain, but I think it's just too much. So I thought, well, if I use the detailed butterflies, I still get to use the patterned paper, and they are just a little bit patterned, and I think they came out quite cute. So again, because you're going to be probably using this on a layout, just one in that pattern looks a bit odd. So I cut out quite a few from that same paper, different sizes, so then I can use these on a layout and have them in several different places, and it gels more, rather than just having one butterfly of that piece of pattern paper. It looks odd. It's you want to try and gel your embellishments so they all match, and there's not one thing that's standing out like a sore thumb. So I did pretty good with getting a lot of embellishments out of that bit of paper. And this was a tag, a punch. So when you're going through your dies, have a look at the things that you could cut out from your scraps. So I'll just put this one back in here, and I'll run through a few examples of the things that you could do using your scraps. Now, your scraps don't all have to be big, like the size of this envelope. They could be little. Let me find a smallish scrap. Alright, so for this one, this is a lovely pink check on the back and a beautiful wood grain here besides the chairs. So my first instinct with this would be to cut out these chairs, or just trim this off, put this in my pink bin, and then later, as I'm going through looking for a pink embellishment or embellishments, I could come across this. Okay, well, I'll cut out a few of these chairs and that will suit this layout. And they're there. I won't cut them out now, ready to go, because with the legs they're likely to get bent and twisted. So I just keep them on the one sheet and then tuck it in the tub, and it's there to be discovered later on. But for this section, wood grain or the pink check, you could get quite a lot out of this. You could even get one of these pockets. No, you can't. It's not quite deep enough. But there's lots of shapes and things you can do. If you don't want to use dies or punches, you can also cut out things. So you can easily cut a square. You could cut a rectangle. You could cut banners and flags and things like that. So don't waste your scraps. Make sure you use them. Right, so dies. Shapes like this are always invaluable. So we have the banners, the dovetailed banners, circles and squares. Always good for tucking, for embellishment bases, for title bases, things like that. So always look at these dies. They can always be used on your scraps. Here's another one. So we've got squares, circles and ovals. So make sure you're not cutting the same dies or the same shapes all the time. You want to add variety. Then you have things like this, a rectangle with the chopped out corners. That is always a lovely shape for a title base. Then you've got things like this. You've got a scalloped circle. So that would be cool. Things like this are not so great normally. Wait, let me get them out. Oh, that one doesn't want to come out. Shapes like this are not really great because they're pretty nondescript. Unless you've got the stamp that you can cut out with these dies, it really doesn't work. Leaves, I would use sometimes if it's a nice green patterned paper, but not a too big a pattern. It'd have to be like a small, like I can see one sticking out here, this small green check. So that would give interest to that leaf without it having to be stamped or doing anything else to it. It's got a pattern on it and you can still see, yes, that's a leaf. But something like this, that just makes no sense. Like, what is that shape? You really don't know. So you don't want shapes like that. Looking at this one as well, that would be nice. I usually cut this out on plain cardstock, but there's no reason why you couldn't have this on patterned paper. If you're planning to put something else taking up most of that, it wouldn't be too much of the pattern, and the little outlying bits would look nice in a pattern. I mean, you could even do a border like this, and this would be nice tucked under a photo, like on the side or something, and that's just a little scalloped edge. And because it's only fine, you're not really going to see the pattern. You're just going to basically get the colours, a bit like the butterflies. You can't really tell on some of these that actually is a floral pattern. It's just a multicoloured blue, and it's pretty and it's not plain, so it just brings a bit of detail and texture to your page. Here's another one I have, is the scallop contour dies. I should just read the label. Scallop contour dies. Now, when you're looking at your dies, also be aware of what's going to cut and what is not going to cut. So this one is going to cut the scallops and the little holes, but not the inside edge. There is no raised cutting edge along this inside rectangle. So this is going to cut out a rectangle of paper with a scalloped edge all in one. So that would be good for matting a photo, but not as a whole element on a page unless you have an awful lot of embellishments to go over it. If you're using a project life card or a pocket card, you could also mount it on something like this to give it a bit more interest if you're using it for a title or something. And then we have other shapes that you normally don't think of. So this is a, I don't know, stitch nested label dies, but I don't know what this shape is. It's not a hexagon. I don't know what it is. 1, 2, 3, 6-sided. Someone who knows is going to comment below so that we could all learn what this shape is. But shapes like this that are different. Now you could look at it as a complete shape to use again as a cluster base or a title base, but you can also cut it out, cut it in half, and then you've got little flags. So think of it like that. Down the bottom you've got a lovely flag to make a banner from, or to tuck under the side of a photo or something like that. So those are shapes, and it's handy to have a heap of different shapes in your stash, so you never know when they're going to come in handy. And like I said before, don't just cut one, cut multiples. So if I had a big enough piece like this, for example, if I had a big enough piece of scrap, I would cut, say, 3 or 4 of these and then a few smaller ones. So I'd see how many I could fit on. I'd probably only do 2 sizes, and that would be enough for layout, because that would give me an awful lot of shapes for that one layout. So yeah, look at your shapes. Also, as an idea for a layout, if you have like this size layout, this size scrap, you could fit quite a few of these on here. So I could fit 2 across there, 2, 4, 6, 8, and then down here a couple of smaller ones. You could do a geometric base page, so just using the shapes. So you would map out first of all where your photos are going, and then work out where you can put these elements. So if you had a 12 by 12, and I don't have a page I can demonstrate, I'll do another video on that explaining how to do layouts just with shapes. But you put your photos on, just place your photos down, and then work out the shapes that you've got and how you can arrange them to make a nice background. If you only have, so you want to use this paper, but that's all you have left of it, you make the most of it by using shapes to create a pattern on your base page. Anyway, I don't know why I put that one there. Here's one that's just ovals. So you've got your scalloped ovals and your plain ovals. So make sure you have a variety of shapes. And tags. I love tags. Then they are so handy for when you don't have enough embellishments for your page, you have a spot on your page, you don't know what to put there. Tags fill the gap amazingly, and they are so simple, and you can dress them up in so many ways. So So this set has a variety of tags, and they have different tops. So you've got your straight corner tops, or you've got your rounded top with a fancy corner in different sizes. So you could cut out a heap of tags from your scraps and again make several of the one size and shape, and then you can dress them up if your die has these. They're the little tops that go around the holes. You can put these on or leave them off, it doesn't matter. Sometimes it's nice to dress them up with some specialty paper, like a foil paper or glimmer paper or something like that, whatever's going to suit your layout. Those details though you wouldn't put on until you're actually using the tag on the layout. So if you're making tags to put in your stash to use at a later stage, then don't add the extra details until you go to use the tags, because that could be limiting. And then if your glue sets and you can't get that bit off, then you can't really use a tag. So don't add the extras until you want to use them. But here you can also cut out things like, here's some banners. So this is a uniquely creative set, or two different sets. So you've got these. If you don't want to cut these out by hand, then you can just run through a heap of these at once, because they're only small, and get a variety of banners to use. You could even, if you wanted to, go as far as cut out something like this, which is a large banner. There's a smaller one as well, but this is a scalloped banner. And if you know you do a lot of, say, feminine pages or celebration pages, then it would be handy to have some of these in your stash. And this is like a really easy way to use your scraps. Arrows. You can always use arrows on a page, and this is an alter new set. Follow your arrow die, and there's a heap of arrows in here, different sizes, different shapes. So again, that is something you can use to cut out from your scraps. And then you've got background elements that you can use for tucking. So this is a uniquely creative die. I don't know the name of it, and I probably haven't written it on here, but things like this. You can cut this out, and then when you go to use it on your page, cut it in half, and then you have two of them. Elements like this, you probably don't want 3 or 4 of them, because that would be overkill on a page. But simply cutting this in half, you could get 2, or you could use 2 if you're doing a double page spread. Have one of these on each page, then you'd use the whole thing. But those sort of things as well are handy to have. So these are just lots of ideas to use your scraps for. Some people have all their scraps and are stuck on what to use them for. So I'm hoping this gives you lots of ideas. Again, a little film strip. These are really popular at the moment. So when I use things like this, you're normally tucking it under things. So I'm a bit of a stinge, and I will cut it in half. Once I die cut it out, cut it in half, and then I have 2 to use on my page. But I won't cut it if I'm cutting it to put in my embellishment boxes. I'm cutting it from scraps. I won't cut it in half until I go to use it. So otherwise you get crumpled up and torn middle bits that are sticking out. And then you've got things like borders. I touched on the borders before on that little one, but here's some bigger borders. So this just cuts out the love hearts, and again, beware of what cuts and what doesn't on your dies. This will cut the 2 little hearts, the bigger heart and the little heart, and have them all joined together, and it also cuts out the bottom edge. Some of these, like this one, oh, that doesn't want to come out. Oh my lord. That is stuck in well and truly. Come on, you can do it. Alright, obviously I've had glue still on that, and I need to get that off. Yeah, look at that. I've got some of it off. Anyway, this die cuts out all those gorgeous little flowers and the embellishments down, the little bits down the bottom, and the top scalloped edge. Does not cut the sides and does not cut the bottom. So this, when I'm using it on any piece of paper, whether it's a scrap or anything, I line it up right on the bottom and actually off a little bit if I can, or not, then just along the very bottom edge. And then after I've cut it out, I just snip from the bottom up to the top of where it did cut, and then I have a separate piece. So this was more designed for your like cards, where you just want the nice edge down the side of the card, but you can use these for scrapbooking as well. And then you have swirls. So you can never have too many swirls for your pages. I've used a die cut aid in here and it's still stuck in the die. But swirls are great for scraps. So little tucking pieces, great behind floral embellishments. And then when you have some of your scraps, you can cut out things like this. So this is a beautiful floral delicate die, and there's no reason why you can't cut that out of a scrap. It would give the same effect as your butterflies. So you wouldn't want to do a really big pattern because it would just sometimes could look a little odd. But yeah, depending on the paper, you definitely can use something like that. And also big leaf dies like this. This is a delicate one, and that would look great in this paper, for example. So just take a really good look at all your dies, and you're probably amazed at what you can do with your scraps. You get a huge variety. Like I said before, some of the shapes that are solid will not look any good on a scrap because they're meant obviously to cut out a stamped image. There are exceptions to the rule though. Things like jars and bottles, mason jars, they will work because that could be a solid vase, a pattern solid vase. So that would work. So not every solid die is not suitable for scraps. Depending on the design, some of them are. So I could use all these as pieces to die cut out my scraps, and again you would create several. Now in some instances the pattern is not quite right, so for this one I don't envisage seeing a vase with numbers on it. So this sort of pattern on the back, there's a lot of dies that I've shown that I probably wouldn't use this paper for, but this would be a good one for banners or oh, the word's gone. You know, the sentiment strips with the dovetailed ends, and particularly for a school page or a child's page or something like that, and then you're only seeing like a little bit, but it's more suited to more like your banners or your tabs, things like that would work better for this pattern. And then we're coming to the end of the dies. And then you've got your word sentiments. So this one cuts out, for example, the word thank you and the shadow. So you could do either the shadow in the patterned paper or the word. Now just a tip for this though, if your pattern is busy, sometimes it's hard to make out what it actually says. So for this small, pretty plain pattern, it would be fine. But this one, for example, that is going to make it really hard to see what that actually says. So just aim for a smaller pattern when you use a word die. But you could use these. And again, thinking of words, if you have a Cricut or a Silhouette or a Brother Scan & Cut, you can load your scraps into your machine and cut out words, sentiments, all sorts of shapes and things. It's endless what you could do. If you have layered SVGs, you could use that, use your scraps to cut out them as well. So there's the word ones. And that's the end, I think, of our dies. So that's just a sampling of dies. But then you've also got punches. So I just pulled out a few punches here that would work. So you could get your shaped punches. This is a tab punch. All sorts of things you could do with punches. So I hope that has given you some ideas. I'm not going to die cut any because it will shake my table massively. But I might incorporate some of these on a layout soon, and then you'll be able to see what you can do with all your scraps. If you've liked this video, please like and subscribe. Hit that notify bell so you know when my next video comes out. Thank you so much for watching. Have a scrap happy day, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye bye.